Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. In today's show, we will talk about the strategic partnership between Pakistan and Azerbaijan and its impact on regional connectivity. Pakistan and Azerbaijan share a strong and friendly history of relationship that is based on exchange of cultural ties, and both countries have collaborated on a number of projects in different fields that includes trade, cultural exchanges, as well as transportation. Relations between the two countries are also emerging. In today's show, we will talk about the prospects and the potential of emerging relationship between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. As per reports, the trade volume between Pakistan and Azerbaijan stands at around $11.7 million. How can this trade volume can be increased between the two countries? We will discuss in today's program. We will also explore that with both these countries having unique strengths and facing their own unique challenges, how can these both countries can work together for enhancing regional connectivity? To discuss this and more, I have been joined in the studios by Ms. Naela Chohan, who is former ambassador. Welcome to the program, ma'am. With him, I have been joined in the studios by Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal, who is international affairs expert and senior analyst. We are joined online by Dr. Fazalur Rahman, who is director, Pakistan Institute of China Studies, Sargodha University. Welcome to the program, sir. Ms. Naela, let me start from you. When we talk about Pakistan and Azerbaijan relations, how the relationship between the two countries have evolved over the years, because we know that last year both countries celebrated 30 years of establishment of relationship between the two countries. How the relationship has evolved?
Well, the relationship has evolved very well. As you said, we have very strong bonds of history and culture, civilization and religion, which automatically bring us together. But since their independence in 1991, we have been working together successively to further fortify and make the relationship profound. You're right, our trade is still not to the commensurate level, but our bonds of friendship, political bonding are very strong.
So let's talk about, Dr. Jaspal, about the political relations between the two countries, how political relations have developed and evolved over the years, because as Ms. Naela said that the historical and the cultural relations date back to the history, but the political relations we have seen the establishment of these relations only in the recent years.
I think that in the last 3 decades, if we critically examine the both states' relations, you very rightly use the word strategic. It's a multi-dimensional relations. Starting with this, if we can focus on political, we have supported Azerbaijan politically, morally, diplomatically. It's a conflict with the Armenians, or what you call it, this irredentist claim of the Azerbaijan, which was a legal claim, and we outrightly supported them throughout these things, and even we celebrated their second war in which they were succeeded 2 years back. So this is the first way at the United Nations level, at the regional forum, we supported them. We engaged them very actively in the ECO, Economic Cooperation Organization, to further broaden the concept. We are working to bridge the gap between the Chinese and the Azeris, because there is a BRI project. We are very active, and then in this, even there was a north-south transport corridor.
Right.
In which
we will be talking later in the program.
So in that context, if you are limiting political only at a diplomatic level, at the bilateral level, we had commissions which meet twice a year, and then you have a high-level visits from both sides, and which has been translated not only at the official level but at the public level. Of course, as already Ambassador Sahib very rightly pointed out, that we had a cultural and historical ties, but of course the cultural and historical ties always groom when you have political or these kind of the connectivity, and we are very efficiently sustaining them and enduring them.
Right. Dr. Fazal, how do you see the evolving relationship between Pakistan and Azerbaijan?
I think it's on the ever increasing trajectory, and this relationship evolving in multi dimensions, especially the economic dimension of this is still, it has enormous potential which is unutilized, and we are focusing on enhancing our trade, and especially Pakistan's crucial energy needs can be fulfilled by Azerbaijan partially. So we are in the process of negotiating with Azerbaijan for our energy security as well. So I see that the potential is enormous, but still it is untapped, and we have to really explore the avenues and possible ways of enhancing our trade with Azerbaijan and also developing our relations in cultural, educational, and other areas.
Right, there is a lot of potential, Dr. Fazal. So, Dr. Jaspal, what are some of the main bilateral agreements between the two countries, and how they have helped in evolving this cooperation between Pakistan and Azerbaijan, and as you earlier mentioned, the strategic partnership?
I think that this joint commission, that is very important, which has a room for identifying number of the areas and support them. Second, in this context, is that we have a strategic, in a way, of that military to military contact. Our defensive forces have a joint exercises and understanding, and we are also providing them or selling them a small arms. And our, you can say, armed forces, both states' armed forces contact is very admirable, and there is exchange of officers. They are coming here and we are going there. That is an important area which we can put it, and we are learning from them how to, you can say, address the security issues like the threat of non-terror, non-state actors. There is a room for this, is that the Azeris very efficiently or intelligently used in their recent war with the Armenia, these drones or swarms of the drones, and how we can learn from there. This is very important. And then within the forum of the ECO, we are now working that how there will be a road connectivity. And of course, road can go to Central Asia from here, Iran to Azerbaijan, and from Azerbaijan to up. And then we are also very much close to Turkey, and from Turkey and Azeri, as there are two countries. If you go to Azerbaijan, especially in the Baku or other countries, of course, their city of Ganja and Multan, they have declared as bilateral or sister cities. But if you go to the Azerbaijan, you will find on a big flags of the Turkey and Pakistan that reflects that they are the people-to-people level, there is acceptability.
Right.
Then there is the energy corridor. Energy, Azerbaijan is rich with the oil, and it's also known as a country of fire, something like that. So there are many areas. Of course, the trade volume which you mentioned, 11.7, it was in 2021, and then there was a COVID. There is it can be go up to the 4 to point, which estimate is that we can improve it.
Right, there is a lot of potential, but when we talk about these bilateral agreements between these two countries, how these agreements have impacted the diplomatic relations and brought two countries closer?
Maryam, like you rightly said, it's a game changer. When you sign these agreements, that gives a platform to fortify the warmth and the cordiality that exists between the two countries at people-to-people level and governmental level also. We have agreements between ministries of finance, we have agreements between ministries of energy, we have a joint commission, we have agreement on investments. Pakistan invested $4.2 million there. We are working together. So these agreements basically provide you a platform on which you can work, and it shows the direction of the governments, how they want to push this relationship forward. And you can see that like Dr. Jaspal said, that it's not only an energy hub, but it's also with road connectivity, with railways connectivity. ECO has its own programs which are being implemented. The National Bank has opened a branch there
in Baku.
In Baku.
2005.
So that would facilitate trade, because when traders go from one country to another, they need banking system. So when you have a bank representation there, it's easier to do the trade.
Right. A lot has been done for facilitating bilateral trade between the two countries. Dr. Fazal, what are the key areas of cooperation, economic cooperation specifically between the two countries?
Well, actually, there is much to do on this platform, on this area, because much has not really been taken place. As I earlier mentioned, that the potential is enormous. But if you look at the trade
trade
between the two
volume, that
countries,
is.
it specifically revolves around 3-4 items, which we export, which is like produced cereals, it's like rice, and it's like soap, and some other goods. But the scope is enormous in terms of exporting agriculture, engineering goods, in terms of exporting leather products, some garments, and these other things which Pakistan traditionally is producing, because we have not really diversified our own export base. So whatever we are producing at the moment, still our exports to Azerbaijan is much less in terms of number of items that we export to
So
them.
what are the
In
reasons
terms
for
of,
this lower trade
I,
volume between the two countries? What were the barriers?
I think the reason is, again, we need to engage them more enthusiastically. For example, the commission the Jaspal was referring to takes place, its meetings takes place after every 2 years. I think the frequency of these meetings should be enhanced, should be increased. It should be either 6 months or on a yearly basis, so that they could discuss more detailed plans, programs, initiatives. And I think also we need to, involve the public sector, the private sector. There has to be some public-private partnership in terms of engaging with Azerbaijan, so that the business community should be facilitated in terms of their exports engagement with Azerbaijan. And similarly, we should also invite, trade delegations from Azerbaijan to come to Pakistan, because they are more abreast, they are more knowledgeable about their own market conditions. So they should, visit Pakistan. They should be also invited to industrial exhibitions which are taking place in Pakistan, so that they can identify certain items. And that is how we can, enhance our trade relationship with Azerbaijan.
Right, right. So, ma'am, what is the trade volume between the two countries? Like we have already discussed that. But what is the potential for further growth, specifically in trade and investment?
There is a great potential, but like Dr. Zafar said, that the Joint Commission meets once in 2 years.
Everything, yeah.
It should be more frequent. And their delegations do participate in our exhibitions, whether it's Expo or it's ideas. But we need more frequent participation. There should be other, because when they have signed, ministries have signed agreements, they should follow up on those, implementation. Somehow we are very good at photo ops, but when it comes to implementation, we somehow miss on that. We need to push forward, and then we have value added products also that we should export to Azerbaijan. Baku is a very European country. If you visit, they have the latest tastes, and we can produce all those things. It's not just agriculture that we need to do.
Right, right. There is a lot of potential when we talk about the strategic partnership between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. We will be talking more about the emerging relationship between the two countries and how the economy of these two countries can be boosted by enhancing and strengthening relationship between the two countries. We will take a short break. Welcome back. We are talking about the economic relationship between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. Dr. Jaspal, if we talk about as of now, what products and services are exchanged in trade?
I think that we have to identify different sectors. Let's start with the economics. In the economics, sport items are very much attractive for Azeris, Pakistanis. Sport
Footballs
industry,
are very famous
football
over there,
from the
yes.
then. We have we are producing the surgical instruments, and our Sargodha industry is very good into it. We can export that, and Azeris are also importing that from us also that. Third area is in the case of this, you can say leather, and our leather products are very much attractive there. So we have to add the quality in it, And definitely if we can encourage our private sector, and if already 4.2 billion, as Ambassador pointed out, that there's the National Bank of Pakistan is working in Baku with that. This is the first area. Besides it, we have a certain agriculture, small agriculture industry, which is, I'm not talking about big agriculture instruments, but small, that can be exported. And Pakistan has to identify certain areas where there's a need in those countries, because they were you can say Soviets, and they are still having that kind of a nostalgia, especially in the field of technology. They are very much advanced.
Of course, yes.
But of course, we can benefit. It could be a mutual. So technological cooperation is there, and in the field of emerging technologies, and especially our new generation is doing well in this context, and that can be established in this. Then there is the second area is, of course, economics. We have, as I identified, it's overlapping.
Right, there is a lot of potential.
Yeah, but there's
Jaspal,
one area I would like to identify here is university cooperations.
Of course. We'll be talking about the educational exchange programs and how that can be further enhanced later in the program. Dr. Fazal, like Dr. Jaspal earlier mentioned, that there is a lot of potential, but what can be done for ease of business in these areas when we talk about trade and investment?
Well, I think already in terms of investment, I think both the countries have very liberal investment policies, and there are no hurdles in terms of investing. Somehow there has not been, I think, much activity or like active engagement in terms of increasing investment, bilateral investment in both the countries. As Azerbaijan is a rich country, they have enormous resources because it's an oil and gas rich country. So Pakistan, which is in dire need of foreign direct investment, can engage and persuade and bring in investment from Azerbaijan in certain areas where the produce can be exported back to Azerbaijan. So I think in such kind of industries, the Azeris will be very interested in.
Right. So, Ambassador, when we talk about these relations, what have been the challenges that have, kept these countries away from expanding the economic relationship?
Well, challenges are several. They are at regional level and international level. Like Dr. Jaspal mentioned about their war with Armenia. Now, if you are war-stricken, obviously your focus cannot be so much on the bilaterals. Pakistan also, we have faced several challenges in the recent COVID situation. Globally, countries could not, reach their potential as far as trade is concerned. But now that COVID is over, now that there is more peace and stability in the region, SCO has already, is working on it, ECO is working on it, One Belt, One Road initiative is going on, Tariq is also a good platform for Azerbaijan. So once these platforms start being utilized by the member countries, I'm confident that our relations, particularly in trade and economic, would be further fortified. Maybe Azerbaijan should also consider opening their bank branch here, so that if their traders come, they also have facility of doing business in Pakistan.
Right. So, what steps have been taken by both the governments so far for enhancing the trade and investment between the two countries?
You see, unfortunately, when we talk about trade, we talk about governments. It's not about governments, it's about private sector.
But there is a lot to be done for ease of business between the two countries.
Even if it is there, we have to also encourage our SMEs, our private sector to look towards these countries. We have a very traditional mindset, and our private sector, with due respect, has a very traditional, like the elephant's path. They only like to have trade with Europe. They would have to,
there's a lot of need for diversification.
Exactly, diversify. It's very difficult to encourage them to diversify because their risk appetite is very limited. But with countries like Azerbaijan, there is really no risk. They have to just take that initiative. You can't put it on the governments. Private sector has to come forward.
Dr. Jaspal, Pakistan has been negotiating North-South corridor with Azerbaijan for quite some time now. What is the progress on that, and how it will increase the connectivity between the two countries and ultimately the trade volume and investments between the two countries?
I think that it's a very important area, though there is no practical outcome, but still at the theoretical level we find that something is happening.
So this corridor is basically the road corridor or the railway corridor?
It will be, of course, when you build a road corridor, naturally it will be translated into a railway corridor, and it can become a corridor via Iran, you can say, focus it, because when we look about the RCD and then which grown into ECO, when you look about the CAREC, Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Organization, in which Iran, Pakistan and Azerbaijan are connected, and then from there, we have to see it. Azerbaijan is very strategically located. It's in the Eastern Europe and West Asia. So when you look at from the Turkey, from Iran, we have Iran, and if we can establish it, it will make it. What is the most important thing is connectivity, because we don't have a railway connectivity, we don't have a road connectivity, we don't have a air connectivity.
But recently some flights, weekly flights
if we start it, definitely it encourage, because both countries have a lot of attraction for the culture, religious cultural tourism, which we call it in Pakistan. It's altogether a big thing. In Azerbaijan, we have a Mazar of the Ganj in Ganj, and then we have a Naqshwa, a Sabe Kaf cave, we have a tomb of the Nu. So there are many things there which are very attractive, and
a lot of potential for tourism.
If we can encourage, definitely when the people travel there and they come back, they bring something that will increase the basic trade volume. So we have to see it, how these things happen. So definitely connectivity will be going to provide or facilitate.
Right. So what were the barriers that these corridors or these transports corridors have not been established, despite establishment of the relationship early in the 90s?
I think that the one barrier is that our direct connectivity or this North-South corridor is very much dependent on Iran and Azerbaijan bilateral relations. Currently, we are facing that there is some kind of a tension between both these states. So we can go towards the Iran, and from Iran you have to lead to Azerbaijan. We don't have though Turkey has a direct contact, so if we can make a bridge like a belt in the sea and then we move there. And then the other point is that the BRI. Of course, if you see the Central Asian CPEC replica, in that context we can connect ourselves in that context. I am very much optimistic because the Chinese are investing in the 25% out of 400 billion US dollar strategic partnership between the China and Iran. There is a lot of water infrastructure, and definitely that will provide us an opportunity to connect it from this to the Azerbaijan. So there are many opportunities, but of course, as we have seen, Azerbaijan is still a newly born country, developing country. We are a developing country. In between, there is a lot of conflicts, and that's why, as a developing states, if you see that Asian region, or especially this part of the region, it's least connected.
Right.
If we are looking about the Europe, which is a connected region, if we have followed that model, definitely it must be connected, but unfortunately still we have to
there's a lot of potential. And when we talk about Azerbaijan, Dr. Fazal, Azerbaijan is a major producer of oil and gas, and Pakistan is definitely in need of energy. How does Azerbaijan's energy sector fit into Pakistan's economic cooperation and economic equation?
Well, in terms of Pakistan's energy needs, Azerbaijan can certainly play a very crucial role. But the problem is that Azerbaijan is a landlocked country. So either it has to come through Iran, as Jaspal said, that there are political, sort of issues in that. So it's Turkey basically, which can be a conduit for the supply of gas. Our petroleum minister has very recently, I think in about 2 months back, negotiated with Azerbaijan about the import of gas, but that was about 20 million tons of gas only, whereas Pakistan's requirement is around 600 million tons per annum, 6,000 million tons per annum, so which is a very small fraction of that.
Dr. Fazal, how has bilateral relations impacted Pakistan's economy, especially if we talk about the energy sector?
Well, Pakistan's energy requirements are enormous, and especially given the global energy situation, Pakistan desperately needs oil and gas. Gas is something, is a commodity which Azerbaijan is able to produce and export to different countries, including Pakistan. But somehow the Azerbaijan's gas either will come through Turkey or through Iran. So most likely it is the Turkey which will be a conduit for Azerbaijan's gas to the ports, and from there it can be shipped to Pakistan. So by this process, the price of the gas is not really very competitive in terms of Pakistan. And also Pakistan has very recently negotiated about 20 million tons of gas from Azerbaijan, whereas Pakistan's requirement is about 6,000 tons per annum. So it's a very small fraction of the gas that we are negotiating with Azerbaijan, but the potential is there if we can negotiate properly and if we can negotiate in a favorable term, then perhaps Azerbaijan could be a good source for Pakistan's gas requirement, and it can really add fuel to our
So Dr. Fazal,
industry.
what are the external factors that impacted this energy cooperation between the two countries? What are the external factors?
Well, the external factors are certainly, in case of Azerbaijan, I don't see, any external factor except that most of Azerbaijan's gas goes to Europe, and the Europeans, they themselves are desperately looking for the gas supplies because of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. So the energy market, the global energy market has been destabilized because of this conflict. So these this kind of situation puts pressure on Azerbaijan also to selectively export their commodities.
Right. So, Ambassador, when we talk about Pakistan and Azerbaijan relations, we know that we have a long history of cultural ties, and one of the agreement that was declaration of twinning of cities of Ganja and Multan that was signed in 1996. How this declaration has strengthened the cultural ties between the two countries?
I think it was a very important twinning of the cities because it has multifaceted effects. Firstly, it is that religious bonding because people go for ziyarat, and Multan is land of Sufis. Ganja is also of a similar temperament, so that bonding becomes very important. Secondly, it creates people to people contact, which is more important than GOP. Government to government is okay, G to G is important, but people to people gives that impetus to a relationship. And then the cultural bonds become, when you revive those, the strength of relationship is further enhanced.
Right. So what joint cultural projects have been undertaken by both countries?
Well, actually, there was a cooperation on renewing our old buildings in Multan and in Ganja also, that we were using similar tiles, and artisanas were coming and working together.
Right. We will be talking more about the cultural ties between Pakistan and Azerbaijan and how these cultural ties in people-to-people context can strengthen the strategic partnership between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. We will take a short break. Welcome back. We are talking about the bilateral relations between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. So, Dr. Jaspal, when we talk about these cultural ties, what role media and popular culture has played in bringing the two countries closer?
I think that Pakistan and Azerbaijan, we talk a lot, but we fail to develop media connectivity. We fail to develop film and drama connectivity. These are the areas from where we learn from each other's history, and then people make an attraction. We have, even in, for example, except a few people, they know that Parsi religion's origin is from Baku. That's why we call it fire is burning there. So that's the one way of looking. As I already identified the Ganja and their tiles or these connective historical sort of thing, as Sufism is there. Then we had in this context, when we look about, I have seen that Pakistan, Azerbaijani's embassy in Pakistan, their ambassador, their deputy high admission, their others, they are very much active. So there's a need to reciprocate them on their side. Similarly, I understand that the government to government and the military to military is more understanding, but there is no educational connections. We need to have a universities connections there. So private sector was the private sector and government sector was the government sector.
Right. We will be talking more about the education sectors and what cooperation agreements needs to be done, what can be more done in that regard. But Dr. Fazal, like we're talking about the cultural ties between the two countries, what role artists, musicians and other cultural ambassadors can play in bringing the two countries together, and why there have not been any major work done or joint ventures done in this regard so far?
Well, actually, in order to improve cultural relations with any country, it's basically the responsibility of certain institutions which are invested with this responsibility. I think that Azeri culture is a very rich culture in terms of
and so is
their
Pakistan's
music,
culture.
their dance, and it's quite similar to our culture because it's a conservative society while at the same time it's a very modern society. So similarly in Pakistan, the music, the art, and the dance and low folk dance and folk music is very attractive. It creates a lot of audience in European zone and similarly in Central Asian area also it's very popular. So it's a very sort of important that our delegations from different cultural institutions should be visiting Azerbaijan and performing there and attracting people and introducing Pakistani rich cultural heritage that we have.
Right.
Similarly, we should also.
Of course. Please continue.
Yeah, but I think that there are at times financial constraints on such institutions to undertake such kind of activities. Anyhow, now it's a time of information technology, and I think that online a lot of activities can take place which are quite cost effective. So I think we should also create some kind of online channel activities, exchange of films, and create certain IT-based platforms which can be used for cultural dissemination of information. Similarly, I think as Jaspal has mentioned about the connectivity between the artists, the media, the film, and artisan, it has to be also. For example, the artists can come in Pakistan, and Pakistani artists can go there for a couple of months and train them about the skills and about the skills that they can impart and they are performing. So
Right.
similar kind of activities are not taking place, unfortunately, which are not very expensive, but at the same time they have huge importance in terms of creating impact.
Right, there's a lot of potential when we talk about these cultural ties, but what about the education sector? What kind of educational cooperation exists between Pakistan and Azerbaijan at the moment?
I think that there is a connectivity which is expanding and taking place. Pakistani young teachers are going to Azerbaijan's different universities, teaching there for 6 months to 1 year period. Similarly, the education universities are also getting more and more interested in collaboration, joint research, and some other activities. Some of the Pakistani students are also admitted to Azerbaijan's universities. At the think tank level, there are connectivity also taking place now between Pakistani think tanks and Azerbaijan's think tanks. When I was heading China Studies Center at the Institute of Strategic Studies in 2007, we have signed a MOU with Azerbaijan's Institute of Strategic Studies, and that still is continuing, and under that regular exchanges are taking place between the scholars and academics. So I think, but there is still a need for more growth in this sector.
Right.
And this is an emerging sector. The education sector is an emerging sector which has a lot of commercial aspect to it. And I think both countries stands benefited if they engage each other into this sector.
Right, there's a lot of potential when we talk about education sector as well. And Dr. Jaspal, what initiatives have been taken by the governments of Pakistan and Azerbaijan so far in the education sector, especially for exchange of students? And are there any scholarship programs launched in the universities of Azerbaijan and in Pakistan?
I think that so far as I know, maybe I am ignorant, only Forest Services Academy sometimes launch a course in which Central Asian and they invite the Azerbaijan's diplomats for studying here for 6 months to 3 months. Apart from that, in our universities, there is no scholarship for the Azeris. Similarly, there is a think tank or researchers. Sometimes Azerbaijan invite the applications and they provide the scholarship to the researchers or exchange, but there is a need. There is a need at the higher education level that they establish a university network. Within that, they establish this regime that how their degree is accepted. Or if one, let's say, if the Azeri student come here and study in my School of Politics and International Relations, a few subjects, his credits will be transferred to the Azerbaijan. And similarly, if my students go in exchange program there, when he return, his credits are transferred here. So we don't have a planning on these issues. Even recently, I came across that the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan is trying that to make Pakistani universities as part of Asia Cooperation Network of the universities. But we didn't work over it, that how we have to establish these network. Of course, Higher Education Commission is working maybe,
Right. So
but there's a need to further strengthen. Without exchange of the university students, academics, media people, you will not establish people-to-people contact. So this is a key.
So when we talk about the current trends, how has online learning and online technologies have impacted the educational relations between the two countries, and how that could be maximized?
I have a bias about this online learning, or what you call it, online conferences or webinars or these kind of the things. It's no learning, frankly speaking. Virtual universities, a virtual thing. It was a new normal, we accepted it. But as a part of the teaching community or a part of the university, when you teach, even when you go for webinar, 3 hours webinar, we present the papers, all over the world people are engaged in it. Oh, we have international conference, no learning. Why? Because when we go physically there, we meet the people, we see the culture in the conference, out of the conference, we discuss these things in a webinar or online. You have 15 minutes presentation, finish. One question comes, no connectivity. But in the case of, you can say,
Physical presence.
physical presence, when we visit there, we have a 15 minutes paper presentation, but after that we have a question. Then at the lunchtime, at the tea time, in the evening, at the certain places, so we explore, we meet. So this virtual or these online things, they are good for business transactions or providing, ticket exchange or these kind of things.
But there is a need for physical exchange.
It's not for a cultural,
Right.
It's not a worth for educational purposes.
Right. So there is a lot of potential for physical
Yes,
exchange of
physical.
people between the two countries. So Ms. Naela, when we talk about these cultural exchanges and when we talk about regional connectivity specifically, what role has these regional organizations, specifically cooperation organizations like ECO, SCO, have played in bringing the two countries closer?
Well, they have different agendas. Regional organizations, they're basically economic, like ECO is economic cooperation organization. SCO also has a different agenda. When we are talking about people to people, like for example now you have an Urdu chair in Baku University in the Department of Languages.
In Baku State University, of course.
So that is a good step.
Azeri people are actually
learning Urdu. We could also, when I was director Central Asia and these republics had become newly independent, we had started this program of training that Dr. Jaspal has spoken of in the Foreign Service Academy, of inviting young diplomats, actually at different levels, the young medium level also, to get training in the Foreign Service Academy here, because then they become your ambassadors when they go back.
Exactly.
But in the educational institutions, there should be also linkages, especially in the technical universities like medical universities, like engineering universities, where there is a desire to work together And I think that needs to be looked at. I'm sure that there is a great potential if utilized.
Right. There is a lot of potential, and when we talk about these regional organizations, how working together on these regional initiatives can, bring both countries together. Like Ms. Naela mentioned that all these organizations have different agendas, but basically they are working for connectivity and development of the region.
We have to identify it. Azerbaijan and Pakistan are member of the ECO. They are member of the other Central Asian regional CARC, and then Azerbaijan is not member of the SCO.
Yes.
So we can
but it is observer at the moment.
We can facilitate them in that. Azerbaijan. So if you see in all these organizations, there
Both
are a number of the
OIC
forums.
as well.
There are a number of the forums there, and within those forums we can exploit them for our benefits. So basic idea is that when these forums meetings take place, summit level or a minister or foreign minister level, at the sidelines you get a lot of opportunities to work together, and in that you explore these sort of things. But of course, this is a very interesting phenomena. Generally, we in Pakistan start saying, okay, there will be a road connectivity from Pakistan, Iran to Azerbaijan or XYZ, then the trade will start. No, there are many other ways for a connectivity, for strengthening our investment. Why Pakistanis have invested 4.2 billion plus in the Azerbaijan? It means that there is some kind of a facility. Why not we are attracting their investment here? There is a failure. That means that we are failing to project Pakistan as a very comfortable country for their investment. So these are the things which we have to focus on it. Then signing or becoming a member of the organization is too easy. Foreign Office makes you, but how to implement those agendas, you have to focus on those other ministries.
Right.
And as I pointed out, very simple point, that if our higher education, with their higher education, if we can just identify that if they study this 16 years, do a degree here, their credits will be transferred there. So if a person is coming,
there's a lot of potential, of course.
So these are the areas
Dr.
where we have to
Fazal,
work.
there is a lot of potential for bilateral relations between the two countries. What are the future prospects for strengthening the relations between Pakistan and Azerbaijan, especially through these regional organizations?
Well, actually, regional organizations are very large bodies, very large entities, where different countries have different political agendas as well to push their own national interests as well to push. There is larger consensus on the broader things like connectivity, trade facilitation, economic cooperation and things like that. But if you look at the real performance of these organizations, they have not really been able to deliver much. So I have my, doubts about the performance of these.
So what needs to be done for
Actually,
enhanced connectivity?
What needs to be done is to develop more deeper consensus, do away with the political contradictions and try to achieve more doable economic goals so that there is more integration within these organizations amongst the member states. So I think that political will has to be there. A strong political will can lead towards more cooperation and collaboration. Unless that is missing, no multilateral organization can progress much.
Right. Ms. Naela, what's your take on this? That how can cooperation and the future prospects between these two countries can be enhanced specifically through these organizations?
Well, these organizations become more important when you don't have geographic contiguity. We don't have common borders with Azerbaijan. So therefore, as was mentioned earlier, that if you want road connectivity, you have to go via another country. If you want gas pipeline, already there's a gas pipeline negotiations between Pakistan and Iran. So at what price will you be buying? They become competitors. So obviously it's not that simple. But if you have these international and regional organizations, they provide a platform where member countries that are not geographically together can still find areas of cooperation, and that's what makes it a game changer then.
Of course, that would make it a game changer, and there is a lot of potential. Thank you very much, former Ambassador Ms. Naela Chohan, for joining in today's show. Thank you very much, Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal, IR expert and senior analyst, for joining in today's show. Thank you very much, Dr. Fazalur Rahman, for joining in today's show. We talked about the emerging relationship between Pakistan and Azerbaijan. There is a lot of potential for both these countries. Both countries have worked for strengthening the regional connectivity. As two nations with rich histories and rich cultures, there is a lot that these countries can offer and much to gain from the regional connectivity. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.